All right, UFC 306, Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili takes place tomorrow evening in the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada for Mexican Independence Day. Now, listen, I understand there's been a lot of criticism regarding this card. I, for one, am very excited. I think there are a ton of very exciting fighters, very entertaining fighters on this card that just don't necessarily have that name recognition yet. And listen, dude, not every single card can be stacked with absolute superstars, okay? But, you know, despite all that, I think it's going to be a great fight of nights. And now that the weigh-ins and all that are concluded, I wanted to do a last-minute picks video for this card. We will start with the very first fight of the night and work our way up. So with that being said, let's get started, dude. Raul Rosas Jr. versus AORIQILENG. First fight of the night, I will be picking Raul Rosas Jr. I think he's going to be able to out-grapple him. Raul Rosas Jr. has seemed to look a lot sharper on the feet as time goes on. Every time he gets in there, he looks a little bit better. I also think he's been able to manage his gas tank a little bit better since that loss to Christian Rodriguez, which, by the way, I mean, that guy missed weight in that fight and then ended up moving up in weight class anyways, so it's not really a good representation of Raul Rosas Jr. It was more so a weight bully in Christian Rodriguez that, you know, took full advantage of that situation. But like I said, every single time we see Raul Rosas out, he looks better in almost all departments. And AORIQILENG's been subbed a few times, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a late second round submission from Raul Rosas Jr. Okay, moving up the card now. I'm not going to be able to expand it because the UFC's website is broken. Okay, fix that, dude. This fight won't expand. This one will, and the one underneath it will, but this one won't. Okay, insane to me. Edgar CHAIREZ versus Joshua Van. This is another fight I'm very excited for. Okay. Edgar CHAIREZ, in my opinion, is extremely entertaining to watch. His record, I don't think, reflects how good he is almost anywhere, right? I think he's a very talented and very skilled individual in all aspects of MMA, and I do think that he gets this one done over Joshua Van. Joshua Van looked great against Charles Johnson up until he didn't. You know what I mean? Very, very good first round. Charles Johnson kind of started to figure him out, and then he ended up getting knocked out in the third, which is fine. Charles Johnson is a vet, and if he's fighting somebody that isn't going to grapple him, he can kind of let things go on the feet, which he doesn't do unless, you know, when he's fighting a guy like Mikhaev or somebody along those lines who he knows is going to shoot, he becomes a little hesitant and he doesn't throw as often. With Joshua Van, that wasn't the case because he knows that Joshua Van is not going to shoot on him, right? But, you know, crafty vet, good boxer. I'm not going to hold that against Joshua Van too much, but with that being said, I do think Edgar CHAIREZ is more skilled and the more well-rounded fighter, and I could also see him getting a submission victory over his opponent, all right? Moving up the card. 2. Yasmin Yarugi, watch this, dude, versus Ketlin Souza. Insane for whatever reason. Okay, either way, dude. I'm going to pick Yasmin Yarugi, but I'll tell you what, dude. I'll tell you what. The odds on this are out of control. Minus 455 is wild for almost any women's MMA fight, especially like outside the rankings, dude. We're not talking about a Zhang Wei Li or an Amanda Nunes or somebody along those lines. We're talking about two women that are, you know, they're not even ranked. I don't get it. Minus 455 is wild to me, especially because this lady got knocked out by Denise Gomez, which that did not end up aging all that well, right? Denise Gomez has lost a few times since then, and not necessarily to the best competition. That being said, I do think she gets the job done over Ketlin Souza, but if I was, you know, I don't think I'd feel comfortable betting on her unless you could find some prop bet or, you know, something along those lines, but minus 455 for a fight like this is insane to me. So, you know, keep in mind, maybe Souza's a live dog. Who knows? Moving up the card to Manuel Torres versus Ignacio Bahamondes. See, dude, I swear, so many of these guys' fights are incredible in terms of entertainment value. But either way, I'm going to be picking Manuel Torres. All right, this is a great fight, and I think it could go either way easily. Like, I think Bahamondes could get this one done pretty much just as much as Torres. This is about as close to a 50-50 fight as it gets. But I feel like Manuel Torres is a little bit more proficient of a finisher, at the very least in his UFC contests. All of his fights in the UFC have been a finish win, and he got a finish on the Contender Series to boot, right? And also, you see a bit of a mix-up in there of kinds of finishes. So he can get submissions, he can get knockouts, pardon me. He's a very well-rounded individual. Like I said, Bahamondes, very tricky. There's going to be a huge discrepancy in height. Reach isn't as large of a discrepancy. Obviously, I mean, what kind of the shape of this man, okay? I don't understand, right? You'd think that if the, you know, the arm reach wasn't there, maybe the leg reach would be, but not necessarily the case, okay? I do think Torres gets it done. Very fun fight, almost 50-50. Anyways, dude, moving up the card to Irene Aldana versus Norma Dumont. Jeez, dude. I guess I'll go. I don't know, dude. I guess I'll go Aldana, okay? I've got question marks beside her name in my notepad, and I just haven't thought a whole lot about it, I guess. These fights kind of slip the mind, but either way, I think Aldana's proficient enough on the ground to just, not get completely controlled and submitted or whatever, or even controlled for the majority of the fight for a decision loss. And I think that on the feet, she'll probably be the one doing most of the damage. Now, I would like to see her open up. Her guard drives me a little bit crazy. She literally like touches the top of her head, and I feel like her doing that and then to go to a jab leaves a lot of space and time for Norma Dumont or somebody like Norma Dumont to shoot underneath her and time that well. Even though Irene Aldana's not throwing a lot of kicks, she leaves a few openings. Now she is, she kind of sits down in her stance. She's not necessarily upright, but either way, dude, who knows with ladies. Okay, Irene Aldana, let's go decision. Moving up the card to Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne. This is another one, dude. Unbelievably excited for. And by the way, these are, two of these fights I've mentioned are flyweight fights. I think they're both going to be fantastic, okay? Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne. I'm going Rodriguez, and especially after the energy that he brought to that press conference. I wish I could run what he said through some sort of translator. I probably could figure that out, but I would imagine the translator left out some things, okay? Because he sounded a little bit more aggressive than what the translator was willing to say. And Ode Osbourne kind of bitched out, if we're being honest, to that kind of energy. He goes, yeah, I'm not going to deny that you're people. Yeah, okay, cool, Ode. I was like, shut the fuck up, dude. Talk shit. What are you doing? But either way, dude. Yeah, I'm going Rodriguez, okay? I think Ode Osbourne's not very good. He gets finished literally, I'm pretty sure every single loss he's had, he's been finished. Whether it be by newcomers or vets, okay? Sub or KO, the dude is like finish prone or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like injury prone, but he's just prone to being finished. It's insane. Rodriguez has a good mix of both of those things, submission and KOs, so he can fight anywhere. Crazy energy, like I said, coming from Rodriguez at that press conference, and I'm thinking that he's going to be right amped up for the crowd there at the Sphere in Las Vegas, especially on Mexican Independence Day, and I think that we see a finish because that's how Ode Osbourne loses almost no matter what. Now, the reach could be a bit of an issue, but I would imagine at 73 inches for reach at flyweight, right? That's over 6 feet in reach for a guy that's 5'7". I would imagine Ode Osbourne has a massive reach advantage over the vast majority of his opponents. It doesn't even matter, does it? Do you know what I mean? So, anyways, dude, his record's starting to look a little Angela Hillish, if we're being honest. Ronaldo Rodriguez, I do believe he finishes him. I could see a KO. Moving up the card to Daniel Zellhuber. Apparently, Edgar Chairez and Joshua Van was the only fight this website didn't want to expand, but either way, dude. Daniel Zellhuber versus Esteban Ribovics, okay? It's another one that I think is very close. Almost a 50-50. Okay? I don't know if these are totally updated, but slight underdog pick I'm going to go with here. Okay? Esteban Ribovics. I think it's a good underdog pick. I'm not totally confident in it. Daniel Zellhuber is very good. Very fun to watch fight as well. There's just been moments, I guess, throughout his UFC career where he's not looked the most impressive when he had a ton of hype on him. Obviously, he's looked very good since coming to the UFC, but I could see him getting caught or something along those lines. He's going to have a reach advantage basically everywhere. Massive reach advantage. This might be a bad pick, but you know what? Fuck it, dude. Let's take a chance, okay? Ribovics, underdog, whatever. I could see Daniel Zellhuber getting it done, though, and I think that's probably the more likely option. But either way, dude, moving up the card, too. Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes, man. Okay. I'm very excited for this fight. Actually, this is one of the fights I'm most excited for. Probably aside from the main event. This fight is the one I am most excited for. Now, I will be going with Diego Lopes. Okay, I've picked Diego Lopes to win pretty much every single time I've picked a fight with him in it. I think even the Movsar Evloev fight. But, I thought he won that fight anyways. Diego Lopes is very good. Okay, now listen. Could Brian Ortega vet it out and land a submission or something along those lines? Yeah, probably. He could, maybe. Do you know what I mean? But Diego Lopes has looked very good in the UFC since he came here. And we know that he has phenomenal grappling because, like I said earlier, right, I thought he beat Movsar Evloev, but even if he didn't, super competitive fight with most of that fight taking place in the grappling. And when it came to the grappling, he was the one that was attacking submissions and, you know, engaging in what I would consider effective grappling, right, based on the scoring criteria. But either way, when it comes to the striking, I think Brian Ortega might be a little bit more technically sound, if I'm being honest. This was something that I think maybe got a little bit exposed in Diego Lopes's short notice fight against Dan Ige, right? Because Dan Ige was able to take some of the shots and give some back. So we saw for extended periods of time Diego Lopes on the feet. And some of it was a little bit worrisome. Now, I don't think Brian Ortega has the same kind of pop on his shots that Dan Ige does. I don't think Brian Ortega, you know, if Dan Ige can't sit you down, I don't think Ortega will be. But when Diego Lopes gets in close and he starts throwing, he leaves himself wide open. He starts swinging from the hip, just big hooks all day long. And his hands are never coming back to his face ever. They're just going back down. And he squares up a lot. Do you know what I mean? So there would be certain shots that he's susceptible to, maybe like an uppercut or some shit from Brian Ortega. But, you know, last time we saw something like that was against Frankie Edgar, and it was in the clinch to boot. So I don't know. And when it comes to the grappling, I understand Brian Ortega can lock up a submission quicker than most people, especially someone like Movsar Evloev. Maybe on the control aspect, Movsar Evloev is more proficient, but in the submission aspect, it's definitely Brian Ortega, right? Movsar's got 0 finishes at all. There's almost no threat of being finished there whatsoever. With Brian Ortega, there definitely is. But I think that Diego Lopes is strong enough and will have a good enough size advantage that he's not just going to get subbed like that. I don't think he's going to find himself in a precarious situation. And I think that if we're in the clinch where you could also see Brian Ortega, like, you know, lynching up a guillotine or something along those lines, like Cub Swanson type beat, I don't think I think Diego Lopes is going to have the advantage in the clinch. Bigger, stronger, way more powerful in terms of his striking. And we kind of saw maybe the beginning of Brian Ortega's chin begin to crack, okay, in that fight against Yair Rodriguez. He got sat down in the first, like, minute or something. The first right hand, really, Yair Rodriguez landed. Brian Ortega got sat down, which a few years back, that would, you know, you would never imagine that. The guy used to take the craziest beatings without ever getting dropped. Do you know what I mean? So I'm going Diego Lopes. I'm not trying to disrespect Brian Ortega in any way, although he is, unhinged a little bit, especially with that whole Eagle story. But, you know, it is what it is, dude. I think Diego Lopes gets it done. I don't think it's going to be easy, and I don't know if he finds the finish, but, you know, I could see him getting it done. And we got to keep in mind, while he might not have looked the best, and there was some people saying, oh, he got fraud checked against Dan Ige, right? Dan Ige may have took that fight on 3 hours notice, but not much to lose on behalf of Dan Ige, whereas, you know, Diego Lopes had accepted multiple fights at different weight classes in that time frame and also took the fight on 3 hours notice. Do you know what I mean? And it had to cut weight, by the way, as well. So don't let that be lost on you, right? Like, he took that on very short notice and had a good showing of himself. And it was a tough fight, but of course it would be. You know, you weren't training for that guy, and like I said, you had to cut weight and all the fucking rest of it. So I'm going Diego Lopes, dude. And if he gets this one done, bro, fucking title shot, let's go. Okay, moving up the card. 2, co-main event. Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. My bad. Okay. Fuck, dude. I'm still a little not torn up, bro. Listen, dude. I don't know. I'm going to go Grasso. Fuck it. I'm going to go Grasso. Now, I understand that, you know, like many others, I kind of do think Valentina probably edged out that second fight. But she's not getting any younger. There was a big time in between that fight and this one, right? And I feel like at this age and this point in her career, I don't know how many more adjustments she can make. Whereas, like, Alexa Grasso did so well in the first one at shutting down Valentina's game. It was competitive and Valentina had success, but a large part of Valentina's game was kind of shut down by Grasso. And then, of course, she was able to find that choke off that spinning back kick. But Valentina was the one that had a lot of, like, improvements or adjustments that she could have made in between those two. And she did, but it was, like, you know, enough to maybe some of the viewers, but not to the judges. And now Alexa Grasso's had a ton of time to be like, okay, well, what did I do wrong in that one? Where, by the way, she still couldn't beat me, right? Or finish me at the very least. So Alexa Grasso's now had time to make even more adjustments. So it seems like Valentina's just kind of playing catch up at this point. Like, well, fuck, what more could I adjust? What more could I do? It seems like Alexa Grasso is very good at shutting down her kicking game. I think Alexa Grasso's better in the boxing range. I think Alexa Grasso's, you know, good enough and strong enough that Valentina can't just take her down and crucifix her the way she could other girls, right? Now, maybe Valentina's going to make me eat my words, but I just feel like at this point in her career, she's older, longer in the tooth. Alexa Grasso's now beat her, you know, at the very least finished her once, and then went to a draw with her. I understand she didn't win, but you know what I mean. Not lost to her, okay? And like I said, big chunk of time in between. Grasso's had plenty of time to make small adjustments so that she could win that fight. And, you know, like I said, maybe Valentina's going to make me eat my words. Maybe she lands some crazy shit, head kick, or God knows who what, but I just don't see it happening. You know, so I think Grasso gets it done. I think Valentina maybe retires or something along those lines, and who knows, dude. But you know what? As far as women's MMA goes, this is a fight that I would actually not mind watching at all. I think these two put on very entertaining fights, especially when they're against one another. And it is what it is, dude. Anyways, moving up the card to the main event finally. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. Okay, now I will be picking Sean O'Malley. Okay. The reason for that is I think that Merab Dvalishvili is a very sloppy takedown attempter. His entries are very sloppy. And I don't think you can be sloppy against Sean O'Malley on an entry. Like we saw against Aljamain Sterling, right? I think that we could see something very similar to that. And Merab does not have the best chin. Merab has a very good recoverability time, or like whatever. The ability to recover quickly. He certainly has that because his cardio is so good. But I just don't think it's going to matter. Bro, we've seen Henry Cejudo wobble this guy. We've seen Marlon Moraes almost finish this guy. Like, Merab gets hurt quite a bit, and he also gets hit quite a bit. It's just that his recoverability is so good that if you're not able to capitalize on hurting him, he's able to kind of, you know, get his bearings back and continue to do what he does. But I think that if Henry Cejudo's wobbling you, right, Sean O'Malley's putting you down. And even if he needs to land a few follow-up shots, I think he'll do that with not much threat of, like, being finished on the mat, dude. Merab Dvalishvili is not this massive finisher, okay? At the very least, not in this later stage in his career. It's more so just like an overwhelming barrage. Like, he weaponizes cardio against you to make you exhausted, but he just continues to do that. He never really, like, picks it up and goes for a finish, really. You know, I've seen quite a few people say, well, you know, like Petr Yan was able to take down O'Malley and quite easily, you know, and Merab was able to completely dominate Petr Yan, and well, that's fine, and I understand that argument. One, I think that Petr Yan is a lot smaller. Okay, so the distance that Merab has to cover to enter on him is not nearly the same as what it will be here. Petr Yan has beautiful striking. Okay, but I don't think his kick game is as versatile as Sean O'Malley. And I don't even know if he's as good at managing distance as Sean O'Malley is, in the sense that Petr Yan doesn't mind grappling, right? Petr Yan's got really good grappling, really good trips. He's also really good at landing shit in the clinch or off breaks, whereas Sean O'Malley wants to remain at distance. So Petr Yan might be a little bit more willing to engage in those, like, you know, shorter ranges where Merab is then able to shoot for a takedown. Also, Petr Yan kind of has this bad habit of, like, trying to rush to a position if he's getting taken down, which kind of allows his opponent to continue on either chain wrestling or, in the case of Aljamain Sterling in the second fight, right, take his back. Both of those rounds that Aljo got his back in and basically held it for the rest of the round was because Petr Yan rushed to try and defend the takedown and gave up his back, and Aljo just jumped on it. So there's just little differences there like that. Not to say that Sean O'Malley's better at stopping takedowns than Petr Yan, or that, you know, whatever, that Petr Yan's a way better grappler than Merab, or whatever it is, right? It's just that there's small things like that. Also, Sean O'Malley's had a lot of time to get better since that Petr Yan fight, obviously. Petr Yan also is able to mix in his striking for his takedown entries, right? He was able to actually hang with Sean O'Malley on the feet, which most of these guys cannot fucking do at all. So Petr Yan's able to, you know, throw a boxing combination and then switch stance to an overhand and then duck under after for a takedown. Merab Dvalishvili's not doing that. Do you know what I mean? He's just not. So I think Sean O'Malley's going to be, I think he'll be active, but maybe not as much as we've seen him. In the past, he has a very high output and a very high strike accuracy. I think we'll see some of the teeps up the middle and shit like that. Not too much because, you know, then you risk Merab catching it and running it back for a takedown and whatever. But I think Sean O'Malley's going to be able to manage distance, and I think that it's just a matter of time. Also, this needs to be said as well, right? Yeah, Merab was able to quote-unquote dominate Petr Yan, but he also failed a record number of takedowns in that fight. It wasn't like Merab was taking Petr Yan down and smashing him, right? The most damage that was done on Petr Yan's face throughout the course of that fight was from a clash of heads. So, you know, Merab can fail takedowns really well and keep coming, but there's not much threat there other than being neutralized. That is the real threat when it comes to Merab Dvalishvili, is like he can neutralize you because you're just constantly doing something. You're constantly defending. You're constantly trying to move. You're constantly trying to get out of there. But I think Sean O'Malley is also going to be a little bit harder to control than a guy like Petr Yan. Maybe not technique-wise, but like size-wise. Sean O'Malley's going to be quite a bit bigger than him. And he's nimble. He's like nimbly. He's spindly. Do you know what I mean? He's good at circling out. He's good at getting off the fence. He's good at all of these things. And like I said, he's very accurate. So I think that a sloppy shot from Merab will be the end of him. I don't know if it'll happen right away, but I think that eventually Sean O'Malley's going to time one of those entries and counter him. Like I said, if Henry Cejudo can wobble you, then I mean, Sean O'Malley's probably knocking you down. And if he can land a few more follow-up shots, that'll probably be that, you know. But yeah, I mean, listen, I'm just going to check my notes quickly here. Just a few other things I wrote, right? Sean O'Malley has I spoke about his accuracy, but the accuracy of his strikes is 61%, right? That's unbelievably high, especially considering this guy's output is as crazy as it is. Like, he lands, I think, more shots per minute than almost anybody I can think of. It's in the high sevens on an average, right? The only guy in the UFC, I think, at the moment that has a higher accuracy rate, which I believe is Alex Pereira, I think it's like 63%, does not have the same output, right? He's a lot more selective with his shots, a lot less inactive, because he knows he's only got to land one or whatever. Sean O'Malley can, you know, just keep him coming. Oh, he's very good at angling off as well and using pivots and things like this. He's, you know, fantastic on the feet. So yeah, I think we see him patient. I think we see hip feints to let Merab know, knees right there, bucko, fucking come on in, you know. And I think we see maybe some uppercut feints the way we saw against Eddie Wineland. Same thing, just like, you know, come on in, buddy. And that's that, dude. And I think that he shoots anyways because it's Merab. And as somebody in my chat pointed out, feints only matter when you're fighting somebody who's intelligent, who's thinking, right? When you're feinting against somebody who's not got much going on up there, it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? So I think Merab shoots anyways, and that's the end of him. Anyways, dude. Like and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you at the next video. Bye-bye.